Welcome to the Mold Matters podcast. Whether you are looking for help recovering from mold illness or just want to learn more about creating a safe environment for your family, this podcast is the place for you.
Hello, welcome to the Mold Matters podcast. My name is Jeremy Evans. I am a co-host alongside a great mold professional.
This is Mike Adams. It's good to be with you.
Yeah, we have decided to start this podcast dedicated to matters relating to mold.
Yes, so hence the name, Mold Matters.
And we also make the statement that mold does indeed matter.
Yes, it does.
And that seems kind of trite, but it is significant as we introduce this podcast and what we'd like to address in it. I think making the statement that mold matters is important, finish my sentence, is important because...
Well, you know, Jared, we've been in literally thousands of homes in the last 15 to 18 years in this industry. And so we've seen some of the very worst cases of people being extremely, extremely sick. I've seen sick kids. I've seen sick moms, people who have bounced from doctor to doctor to doctor. They cannot figure out what is wrong with their health or their child's health. And lo and behold, it turns out that once we narrow it down and are able to treat their home, they get significantly better, and in most cases they get well again. And so it's a real deal. Mold is real. If anybody tells you it's in your head, they're flat out wrong. And along with mold and mold, spores are the associated mycotoxins that come with mold. Mm-hmm. We get all kinds of health issues from, and you chime in here too, Jared, but asthma, skin rash, chronic cough, and then with the mycotoxins, you run into all kinds of neurological issues, whether it be, anxiety or depression or, even chronic headaches and just it runs the gamut of what mold can do to your family.
Yeah. And it's kind of a sleeping giant in a way, because as you and I have learned, there are so many people, even in our community, which is considered a community that is not very moldy when you compare it to some of the humid and very moldy states in the USA. Even here among us, we daily within our company are meeting people who are sick from mold. I mean, our neighbors, our coaches, our friends. I mean, even doctors that treat mold illness.
Right. It's amazing. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's unsuspected, and probably the biggest reason is because it's not seen. The second reason is maybe lack of education, as you started listing out the symptoms. I mean, there's another 50 we could add to that.
Absolutely.
And it's in many ways hard to diagnose and really kind of relatively new, kind of a new field, mold remediation, mold healing. And so people just don't know. I think that's maybe as we introduce our podcast and the many episodes we plan to release, one of the themes is going to be educating people on mold illness. We're not doctors, correct, but plan to have doctors on this podcast. Yeah. We're also professional remediators, but most of what we share maybe doesn't come from the textbook. Comes from like being in homes, right?
Yeah, it's one of my passions is to try to educate people that traditional mold remediation, though it has its place in some instances, normally will not make your home healthy again. Let me just dive into that just for a second. When a traditional mold remediator goes into your home, it likely is because you've had a flood. And so they do the dry out. They'll contain the area with plastic. They will then rebuild the area and run air filters and then test within that contained area. My problem with that is that that customer then thinks their home is mold-free, and it could be far from mold-free.
Mm-hmm.
But they're being given a test result that says, "Oh, I don't have any mold anymore." Well, they're not testing the entire home, nor are they treating the entire home. So our premise has always been, with our company and our philosophy, is it has to be a whole home treatment, or you will likely still fight this illness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'd like to say that in that vein, this podcast can be for the end consumer, someone who needs mold remediation, someone who's sick from mold. This could be for someone who maybe isn't even sick from mold but is curious about mold. I even would like to think this could be useful for someone in the remediation industry.
Yeah.
Because as you said, a big theme that we're going to bring up a lot is whole home health. And I want to say that in the next 10 years, in fact, right now, that's a huge movement. With the pandemic happening, everyone's realizing our indoor environment affects our health. We're staying indoors all the time, and there's been an increase in, mold and other symptoms just from our homes making us sick. So, we're gonna beat it like a drum that whole home health is the key to successful mold remediation.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look
So
forward to it.
we'd just like to invite everyone to buckle up, and if you're interested in this topic and think it has value to you, please come listen to our podcast as often as possible. We'll invite other professionals on the podcast from time to time as well, and we're just going to share what we've learned, yes, from the textbook, yes, from our professional certifications and courses, and then I think most importantly is just being in thousands of homes and being sick ourselves.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
We cultivated some mold last month and both started getting really queasy. So, I mean, we have experience with the effects of mold ourselves. So, anyways, that's our podcast. Look forward to seeing you in the future.
Yeah, tell your friends.
Yep.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Mold Matters podcast. Be sure to subscribe for more in-depth information on mold illness and recovery.